Following a full decade of comics from Teen Titans that honestly I really struggled to get through, and the series really didn't connect with me under Dan Jurgens, it was time for a major change to the series. Devin Grayson, a relatively new writer whose first publication in comics apparently only occurred 2 years prior, was given control over the series following a crossover with JLA, also written by her and part of this round. It is a hell of an opportunity to give to a then up-and-coming newbie in the industry, so today let's discuss whether that paid off and if Teen Titans Volume 2 can make the grade. I'd only read a few books from this run before taking it on. Not a lot of people in my personal life have read it either, as I never really have talked to anyone about these books before now. Yet I think, having read through all these Grayson books, my friends and I were simply sleeping on these comics. Devin Grayson manages to bring about every single Teen Titans member that ever existed for the crossover with JLA, and then teaming up with artist Mark Buckingham, created a new team out of that, consisting of Nightwing, Troia, Arsenal, Tempest, The Flash, Starfire, Cyborg, Changeling, Damage, Argent, and exactly one new member, a speedster named Jesse Quick. Now, if you know anything about Teen Titans, a number of characteristics about the team itself should stand out to you. First is that we have the original team of Speedy, Robin, Donna Troy, and Aqualad all back, but now sporting more adult superhero identities. It really fits well with the Titans theme. We also have 2 speedsters, which is interesting, and a few members of the Titans from the Wolfman era, and to round it all out, as promised, Argent manages to eke out a return from the Dan Jurgens era. The roster is ambitious as it is impressive, large by the standards of just about any traditional superhero team, and closer to the scale of something oddball like the Legion of Superheroes. It's not easy writing for a group this large and leaving enough room for each of the characters. I would argue that, unfortunately, as much as I do like these books, Devin Grayson can only do so much in that regard. Some characters are simply going to shine in the 20 or so books she wrote more than others. In spite of that, Grayson's work here only really ever consistently impressed me. Even though the size of the team is really big, and perhaps this is to a fault, it does lead to the benefit of each issue feeling like it is cram-packed full of wall-to-wall action and pure Titans energy. The first half dozen issues or so are awesome, and definitely this run at its best. Buckingham's art takes some getting used to and might not be for everyone, but I really like it, especially in these early days. It's a weird combination of having really crisp and clean, dynamic lining to it, though everything also having this loose and cartoony look. It's a cool blend that really works well for me. I love the vivid coloring of these comics from this time and the life they bring to every moment. For the first chunk of Titans, our heroes battle Hive and demons in some very tightly paced content I found largely impressive. I don't know a lot about Devin Grayson's other work, but she's been around for a long time now and been writing comics this whole period, and from what I have seen, it is impressive. She seems to have a strong understanding of these characters and what is fun about them. There is a strong sense of identity to these heroes and their adventures. For example, I really get a sense of them operating out of and living in the tower. The more we can see of a team just existing and working together, the better it feels like I can connect to what these characters are like and how they relate to each other. This series is full of so much of that, which I really appreciate. Grayson does it really well, too, and it leads to a pleasant read for the 20 issues she scripted. I do think there's a bit of a feeling of decline over time. The momentum of the first half definitely feels a lot more carefully written and worked out compared to the second half, when things start to slow down quite a bit in the pacing. And she even co-writes the last few issues with Jay Faerber, who we'll be talking about more next round as he took over the series. By the time we get to that point, my opinion of these comics diminishes quite a bit. I appreciate the character work done in this era, but it feels like we start spending way too much time in the tower, as much as I do like these character beats, because the plot suddenly starts feeling insular. Instead of these sprawling, dynamic adventures in this beautifully detailed world, that I feel really defined the series as it began, Grayson's time ends with a bit of a feeling of kind of going out on a whimper. I don't want to play that up too much though. There's some cool aspects to this series. This is the first time somebody had finally managed to write Teen Titans or Titans comics that were at least comparable to Wolfman and Perez. That is a huge deal and no small feat for any writer or artist. These books are easily more impressive and memorable than anything written by Dan Jurgens last round too. I had a lot of fun with Grayson's comics and would recommend them. I'll even go so far as to say they would probably be in my top 10 when considering all Teen Titans comics of any kind. It's very, very impressive, but it should be noted I would probably rank it somewhere around number 9 or number 10 on that list. As a series, very good and definitely worth reading, but not the absolute best either. It's hard to compete with Wolfman and Perez at their best, so very few takes on Teen Titans or Titans are ever going to manage to do so, but Grayson at least approaches something on par with what Teen Titans looked like when Perez stopped working with Wolfman regularly. And to be fair, some good, top-level Teen Titans comics were produced under both circumstances. This volume of Titans also feels like it really moves the franchise forward after it was basically stagnant for the entire duration of the 90s, which I really appreciate. The Titans feel a lot more grounded and easier to relate to. In spite of the sprawling cast, there are a lot of good moments here. You can tell we are in the hands of a good writer when you have Grayson featuring stuff like a weird-looking Cyborg or the return of Cheshire. Cheshire in particular is notable in that she is a huge part of the franchise and an essential piece in the story of Roy Harper, but I often find her appearances in other comics really inconsistent when writing the woman. It gets to the point that her appearances across other Titans books are more an annoyance than anything else. Not so much here though. Grayson is able to play into quite a few comic book tropes and manages to write them with a certain degree of quality that always feels inoffensive. So sure, we're dealing with all these villains coming together and teaming up against the Teen Titans in a couple of issues, and we have Cyborg going through very familiar character beats that he basically went through for the entire 90s. But these familiar moments don't really feel like they're a waste of our time when Grayson and Buckingham are doing it better than anything Wolfman did when he was writing alone or Dan Jurgens in the previous round. Grayson's content doesn't exactly feel brand new, even considering that it came out about 20 years ago now. Yet, because both the writing and art are pretty good, the content ultimately still feels fresh and invigorating to this day. Once you get used to Grayson and Buckingham's pretty specific sense of style, you realize how good of a creative team these two are. And I don't want to undermine their individual creativity either. A lot of stories are pretty original, like one where the minds of the original Teen Titans all travel back to a time when they were children, and they have to seek each other out across their respective origin stories. It's so much fun. This continuity-heavy stuff might owe a little bit to the editors at a time, because these books are really on point in that way. Better yet, Grayson really makes strong use of that continuity. It makes me feel attached to these characters and the books on the whole. As I said, not every character gets to shine here, sure, and that's a bit of a shame sometimes because what we do get out of these individuals is often great, however limited, like in the case of Argent. But we do zero in on some of the Titans, and they are featured quite well. Macleod, although he really is just going by Garth and Tempest in these books, gets to really take some time in the spotlight here. It's something incredibly rare for the character across the entire Teen Titans franchise, and in my opinion, I think these comics are the ones to best feature this particular character. It is interesting where I settled in on this. It might appear to denote the books are only average, but I would argue based on how I spread the grades out evenly across all the letters, it's better to look at this as a bit above that. The way I am scoring these, only so many eras are going to be able to get an A, meaning that even at B, it's still a pretty impressive series, and I'd still probably say it's among the best of the Teen Titans comics, but as I was saying earlier, it's just not the absolute very best. Don't go into these books thinking they are going to be at the level of Wolfman and Perez at their peak, writing the Judas Contract. it isn't on the level of some of the top tier Titans content we haven't covered yet either, but it still ranks very well, and is still very competitive against some of the stuff we've talked about earlier, like when Wolfman was on his own a lot more for the Teen Titans stuff, and it is miles above the original Teen Titans comics from the 1960s. I really like Titans, and they must have done something right, because even after Devin Grayson left the series, it would continue for another 30 issues. We'll talk about those 30 issues next on Grading the Titans, so be sure to subscribe to our channel with notifications so you can be told when that comes out. Thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll see you all next time on Comic Island.